Hi, everybody, and welcome to Seeking the Sacred Earth, and happy Father's Day to all the papas out there. So, this is a video very similar to the video I made on Mother's Day because this day can be very complicated for people for so many reasons. Even if you've had a great relationship with your father may have passed on, and this could be a day that activates a lot of latent grief. For me, it's a scenario where I had a very difficult relationship with my father. I long for the healthy relationship that a daughter could experience that I wasn't able to have. And also he passed on. So there's just that regular grief of what we feel, that sort of almost psychedelic vibe that happens when you lose someone that close to you or that influential upon your development. So this is a day to be incredibly gentle with ourselves. And, this idea of rewilding, I've taken it to another level, which is like reparenting. Even if your parents were wonderful people, they made mistakes. I am a mother. I really feel this because I often go to bed beating myself up a bit about this mistake I made, or maybe I didn't word that correctly, or I wasn't able to devote as much attention as I desired. So we're human. We're going to make mistakes with our children. We're going to make mistakes with how we communicate. Our intentions get wonky when we're tired, exhausted. So I love this idea of really giving a huge amount of grace to our parents, but also taking the responsibility back upon ourselves. Once we're an adult, we have to parent ourselves. And we have to look at where our parents made mistakes, and maybe in our eyes where our parents failed us. And then we have to take up the slack as adults to ourselves. The first way I learned to incorporate this idea of reparenting was to go into a meditative state and really get to know my inner child, that little girl who was frustrated and angry, scared, terrorized, and really enact with her in my creative imagination as if she is my own child now. What that developed into in these meditative sessions was then I had the teenager me who, was terrorized and isolated, and I had to parent her. And then the young adult, because there was some trauma there too that I had to take back into my own hands. And this is really what we talk about when we say, yes, it's not your fault what happened to you, and we can't control what our parents do, but we can take responsibility for our lives as adults, and we can heal those wounds. And I'm here to tell you they can all be healed. And yes, healing is a spiraling journey, but the brunt of it can be done, and can be done with these kind of active imagination exercises. So let's talk about father. In astrology, oftentimes there's sort of a disagreement. Is father reflected as the sun in someone's natal matrix chart, or is it reflected as Saturn? So I want to kind of combine this idea that there are many aspects to father. I know for sure from my own father, there's so many different aspects of, he was a very strict disciplinarian, but there were other things that didn't make sense where he was totally, not a nurturer and not, didn't have his dad credentials, so to speak. But how do we give that to ourselves? All those ideas of the disciplinary father, the father that takes us on the adventures in the outside world, the nurturing father, or the father who has sort of, in a way we can look at it like the material wealth of the father and how that is left onto legacy. And what does that mean to have someone who could support you materially? That's what we associate with father. Father as protector. Father as protector is a huge one. So how do we do this for ourselves? Well, I started with discipline. And although I was, a gymnast early on, and I went to Juilliard, which is a lot of discipline entails to do any of those things and do them well, there were other parts of my life where I really lacked discipline. And I could make excuses. Oh, well, I've been through this, so I don't have to be this hard on myself about certain things. But Where I feel like we can father ourselves is to have discipline about how we care for our body. If this idea of father being the protector and of the provider of the material realms, then how can we protect our bodies? How can we take care of this material possession that is our body? I think also fathering ourselves invites us to question how we do look at money. What is our relationship with material wealth? What is our relationship with being disciplined around money, being mature with money? So when you're talking about fathering yourself, it can very much look like the places in your life that are loose, that are messy. The father energy would come in and give them structure. It's the energy of the straight lines and the corners. It's the masculine energy of giving emotions structure so that you can build upon your ideas. So a couple of things to do is today, think about where in your life could use some discipline and structure, and could you give it to yourself? Because oftentimes these parts of our lives that need this more linear format, if we don't take that father role for ourselves, something else can come in and do that, like police or, the tax man or your boss or anything that you would think would exert authority over yourself. This is also about having a conversation with yourself about how do you feel about authority. Sometimes when we don't have a good relationship with our father, we end up projecting that disappointment, that hurt, that anger, that rage on that which we call authority in society. Yes, the police, the government, IRS, the leaders of your religious institutions, your teachers. So this is just a day where if you did not have a good relationship, you can really just be honest and honor that and do something wonderful for yourself that is going to give you that sense of support. The next thing is to think about your own legacy. This idea of leaving something to the younger generations because you yourself have been able to fortify your own life. And, the next chapter to this Father's Day is where can you be paternal, nurturingly paternal to young people in your life, to those who are younger, those who are less experienced, those who may not be as knowledgeable or awakened as you in certain subjects. Where can you extend this benevolent, disciplinary, supportive teacher that our fathers were supposed to be? Where can you give it to yourself, and where can you give that to others, whether you're a male or a female? And, the last thing I wanted to say about these days where we're celebrating these relationships is we are really at a time right now in our society where we can really define what these roles mean. And when I speak to people and my clients that I'm working with now, I'm really made very aware that most of us are still trudging along with these painful experiences from our parents' shortcomings. So the next thing we must do for ourselves, for the people who created us, and for those we've created, and the projects that we call creativity, is to forgive. And to really know that each generation is expanding upon the other, hopefully in good ways, and I do see that. I think most of us see that. But when we look back on the patterns of the past, there's really only two things we can do to avoid perpetuating it. One, to acknowledge it and forgive it. I do believe that people are doing the best that they can do. And the second thing to do is to think about how you want to change it for yourself. We forgive, we let go as best we can, and we try to reformulate these archetypes within ourselves and in our relationships. So one relationship can have you playing many roles. So just an exercise as I close this video, where can you be that benevolent father? Where can you be that source of structure, of integrity, of clarity, of boundaries, of discipline, and of that pure rooted love of protection for yourself and for others today? Happy Father's Day, everyone.